and welcome to the podcast that is less XG and more hoof it up and see. It's the big man up top.
Yes, it is. Not your strongest, Ed. That one, I'll have to say.
Oh yeah, but at this stage we're starting to run out of ideas, Joe.
We're clutching at straws.
We're well into our second season, and we're running out of ideas. But we'll crack on, won't we?
We will very much. How are you, Ed?
Oh, I'm great, thank you, mate. What are we going to talk about today, Joe?
I'm really excited about this, actually, Ed. I had an interview with Marcus Speller.
We did, and you were delighted.
I was very happy about this. He's the host of the Football Ramble podcast, which is a very big podcast. Actually.
Yeah, it's probably the biggest podcast in the country covering football.
This is quite the coup.
Yeah,
I think for the plucky big man up top podcast. But I spoke to him about his podcast and what it's like being a Christian on a secular podcast, and we also spoke about how do you criticize managers and players well as Christians?
Because this very much feels like sacking season, doesn't it? It feels earlier and earlier, but managers are on the brink of losing their jobs all over the place. And so, how do we, as Christians, objectively call out poor performance without it getting personal? That's a big question, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think we've covered this kind of thing before, but it felt particularly relevant at the moment, as you say, because I'm thinking particularly with someone like Ange Postecoglou, which obviously we're going to come on to, but people are turning already. And what do we do in terms of, do we jump on the bandwagon or do we try and stand out? And
Russell Martin as well in Scotland. We're going to touch on things north of the border as well today.
But before we do all of that nonsense, why don't we start with a quiz?
Yeah, you're quizzing me, Joe, aren't you, this week?
Yes, so this is Bible Ballers. This is a quiz we do every week where we ask each other a question about a Bible baller, which, of course, is a footballer who shares his first name with a book in the Bible.
Yes, you're James Milners.
You're Peter Crouches.
You're Daniel... I can't think of a Daniels.
Dan
Burn.
Dan Burn.
Yeah, famously.
Of course.
Of course.
But I'm going to ask you a question this week, Ed. Are you ready?
I certainly am. Ready as I'll ever be.
This one's about a hero of yours, I'd say, actually.
Oh, goodness me.
Someone that...
There's no book of Ricardo in here. I don't know. I don't remember a book of Ricardo in the Bible.
Yeah, well, this is actually someone you have on one of your footballing shirts.
Okay.
So, are you ready?
Yes.
Current Baller League manager John Terry. I'll say that again. Current Baller League manager John Terry made 492 appearances for Chelsea, winning the Premier League 5 times. But which Premier League club did he spend a year on loan at in 2000?
Oh, goodness me.
Which Premier League club did he spend a year on loan at?
I honestly have no idea.
No?
I have no idea.
He made 6 appearances for them.
Okay. Goodness me, I'm definitely going to have a think about it, Joe.
Well, I'll give you a bit more time.
Thank you. Lots going on in football this weekend, wasn't there, Joe?
There was a lot going on, a lot of big games, it felt, and not the most high-scoring weekend, I don't think. There was a lot of tight games.
But as ever, lots of narrative and story. And so I think, look, we have to start, Joe. I'm very sorry. We have to start with Liverpool. Arne Slot out? Is that what we're talking about at this stage? 3 defeats in a row for Liverpool.
The wheels have fallen off. Arne Slot has no idea what he is doing, and this is the worst Liverpool squad in years.
Is that your opinion?
Absolutely not. No.
That's the opinion of Liverpool Twitter.
Yeah, Liverpool Twitter is a terrible place right now. I don't know if you get much of it on your feeds, Ed, but some of the things are just ridiculous. Let's
look at the game specifically. Chelsea 2, Liverpool 1. What was your assessment of the game, Joe?
Well, I think this was obviously a really good win for Chelsea. And I think going into this, Liverpool, this was an opportunity to make a statement to say, actually, we are good, because it's been a bad week. The loss to Palace in the last minute, the loss to Galatasaray. This was an opportunity to go to Chelsea, who have quite a depleted squad. Cole Palmer was out. They had one recognised centre-back. And you're looking at that as a chance to make a statement to get the win. And I think Slot kind of went into it with the attitude of, okay, let's go back to basics. Let's put back in that midfield of Gravenberch, McAllister, Szoboszlai. And this is what worked last year. let's just go back to basics. But it just didn't seem to click. It didn't really work.
It looked like Slot was tactically outclassed in this game, rather than sort of anything to do with his players and effort. I do feel we need to come on to Mo Salah in a bit, because there's been a lot of criticism thrown his way, particularly for not tracking back and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, just struggling with overloads on the wings, weren't they, in this game?
Yeah, Chelsea had... I think Maresca tactically set them up really well. I think it was quite clear that he had said, and he even said in his press conference, we were targeting that right back position. It's quite clear that Liverpool have a problem at right back.
Well, so as a Liverpool fan, are you worried? Very, very genuinely.
A little bit, yeah. I think there's a lot of things to sort out. I think bringing Salah more into the game. I think a big thing is Salah last season was so used to being the main man. And this is all on my shoulders. I'm playing to get a new contract. And actually, you saw as the contract thing kind of got sorted out, he dropped off a little bit because he didn't need to prove himself anymore. He's so used to everything going through him and people finding him on the wing. Whereas now you've got Wirtz trying to fit in. You've got Isak, who's the main striker. Salah struggles when he's not the main guy, I think. So it's going to be really interesting. But I think for me, the big problem to sort out is the fullbacks. Because Liverpool, the last however many years, they've not had many decisions to make in the back four. Van Dijk is first name on the team sheet. Robertson's been class. Trent has been, when he's been fit, he obviously starts at right back. The only decision they've ever really need to make is who partners Van Dijk at centre back. Joel Matip did it for a long time. Joe Gomez did it. Konate did it more recently. Whereas now, you've only got one surefire defender in that back line, and that's Van Dijk.
And even he is not the player he was. Konate has been making mistakes left, right and centre. So it is just a defensive unit in flux, isn't it?
It is. And I think regardless of the ability of those players, you are better when you know what your backline are going to do. Van Dijk is there and knows exactly what Konate does. He knows what Trent does. He knows what Robertson does. And you help each other. You move together and you develop that relationship, don't you? Whereas Van Dijk is there and he's looking, I've got a different right back than I have last week, than I have the week before, because there's 3 that's on rotation. You're looking at left back. It's someone completely new that's yet to find his feet. And you've got Konate, who, like you say, isn't at it. So there's a lot riding on Van Dijk to try and bring this together.
Now let's focus on Chelsea, because as you said, this was a massive win. A great moment for Estevao at the end, wasn't it?
Yeah, really, really good moment for him. And you saw how much it meant to him as well. Wild celebrations, limbs, I believe they call it.
Scenes.
Absolute scenes. Great moment.
Great moment, and also a great moment elsewhere up in Manchester, Joe, wasn't there? Man United beating Sunderland 2-0. A comfortable win for United in the end, but actually they really needed a comfortable win, didn't they?
They did. I think this was a perfect fixture for Amorim after Brentford last week. You want to go into the international break on a high, and like you say, we're in this kind of strange sacking season. If this hadn't gone this way, you would fear for Amorim over the next couple of weeks. And I think he's saved himself. Amorim now has 50% of his wins as United manager against promoted sides. So he's found his niche. He's
found his niche is beating the weaker teams, which is, look, that's fair enough. One big thing for me in this game was that front 3 really seemed to be firing of Šeško and Mbumo and Mount. Mason Mount is back. He looks like a revitalised player, doesn't he? And I just think United looked dangerous, and they really had sort of grasped this thing of a front 3 with overlapping wing backs as well. And look, we've been fairly critical of Amorim this season about how stubborn he is, but it seemed to work in this game. Let's not get carried away.
That's the thing; you can't judge it off this game at all, because no disrespect to Sunderland, United should be winning this game quite easily. But you're right, Šeško made a big difference. His hold-up play is very good. I think United are learning when to go long and kind of bypass the midfield. New keeper as well, looking really good.
The Belgian keeper.
So overall, quite a positive result, and you're starting to see signs that United can win football games.
And I think, like, for Sunderland's point of view, like, they've had a really great start to the season, but there's a certain number of games that they will just write off at the beginning. And now this probably wasn't it, actually. You probably look at United and go, oh, we could get a point there. But it wasn't a particularly bad performance. They made it awkward in the second half. I don't think Sunderland have got anything to worry about particularly.
No, you can't read into this game at all, and they will just go again after the international break, keep up their good start.
Now, another 2-0 win, a very professional 2-0 win, was Arsenal beating West Ham. Again, it's West Ham, and we know the issues that are going on there. But, look, you can't argue with Arsenal. Like, this is the kind of game they would have bottled a few years ago, and they just, looked very comfortable without really breaking a sweat.
Yeah, and it's a game that they lost last year. They lost 1-0 at home to West Ham under Graham Potter. And this is probably a bit more of a solid West Ham under Nuno than it was under Potter. But still a game you'd expect them to win. This actually really reminded me of Mourinho's Chelsea back in the days when they conceded 15 goals all season.
Yeah.
They've only conceded 3 so far. They're defensively just very good. And kind of that 2-0 professional win, you would call it. They get the fairly early goal and then they just cement it.
Man City winning 1-0 away at Brentford, Joe. What do we take from that? It's sort of awkward getting the job done, do we think?
It's really hard to know, isn't it? Because this really reminded me of that game a couple of weeks ago with Arsenal, where they take the lead and they defend.
Yeah.
It feels like Pep isn't bothered about battering a team.
No.
It didn't feel like they were going for it. It felt like they got that goal and we're fine with this.
But
that
sort of reminds me of Pep when City were very dominant. They did not care about playing fancy football. They did not care about what people thought. They just came away with the 3 points over and over again in fairly dull fashion. And sometimes that is just going to be a 1-0 away win. And, and that's, fair enough.
A win's a win. And, I think you're right. They kind of had that season where they were just completely dominant. They'd score so much and they go on these runs. And then after that, Pep moved towards we're going to go goal up and then we're going to essentially shut everything down. We are going to make this impossible for you to score a goal. That wasn't actually the case in this because Igor Thiago had a really good chance to equalise in the first half. Donnarumma saved a one-on-one. So Brentford had chances. It feels like so many games this weekend ended with long throws.
Yeah.
I don't know if you found that too, but it feels like...
I'm bored of it now, Joe. Come on.
Me too.
I had 3 years of this as a Stoke fan.
You're done with it. But it just feels like, whereas in the past, a defending team would be fine hoofing it out for a throw, that's not happening. Like, you're doing it now and it's feeling like every chasing team is getting a long throw in the last minute and seeing what happens.
Let's just touch on a couple of teams, a couple of other results, because I think that those are the teams that we've focused on so far. The big boys, Chelsea, Liverpool, United, Arsenal and Man City. Do we call United a big boy these days? I really don't think so.
But I thought you were referring to Sunderland.
Yeah. No, you're right. But then we've got this sort of spate of results, and I'd say the question is, and this is just the question I'm going to ask you for all of these, is do we need to pay attention to how these teams are playing? So let's start with Newcastle beating Forest 2-0. Newcastle have started well again, haven't they?
They have. Yeah. Again, very, very solid defensively. I think they seem to have this thing of kind of quietly going about their business. Voltemada, did you see his penalty in this game? Fantastic penalty. And when Wissa gets added into the equation, I think they'll be quite the force. So
Voltemada really doing a good job of stepping in place of Isak, and I don't think anybody thought he would. No. Like, he's not that kind of player.
Well, he's a very different player.
He's a very different player, and yet he's banging them in. So fair play. Bournemouth on Friday night beating Fulham 3-1 in a really, really comprehensive display. Antoine Semenyo looking superb in this one.
He's been one of the standout players of the season so far. He's so good with both feet, and Bournemouth again play a counter-attacking style of play. I think he's one of the best players in a counter-attack in the Premier League. Bournemouth again, very good start to the season, going unnoticed and pushing for Europe. Everton
being the team, who would have thought Everton being the team to unseat Crystal Palace from their 19-game unbeaten run. And a late goal from Jack Grealish, wasn't it, in this one?
It was, and my question about Everton is they've had a couple of rocky results which have, of course, resulted in booing at Everton.
Classic.
Is the Hill Dickinson boo louder than the Goodison boo?
I don't know. We'll have to get the decibel meters in.
I think it might be. It's quite a loud bowl.
Yeah.
The Hill Dickinson.
Maybe it reverberates a little bit more. I mean, Palace, again, you don't want to read too much into this. They've been doing really well, looking really solid, and I'm sure they'll pick themselves up. Spurs beating Leeds away 2-1. And I just think, like, it's not just the result, it's the way that Spurs are going about this under Thomas Frank. He is doing a great job, isn't he?
Really good job.
Early days, but, starting really well.
Yeah, a really good job. And again, this is a game that last year they would have lost. They would have lost probably quite comfortably. And they just gave it a really good go. Horrible conditions. Storm Amy was out in force this weekend, wasn't she? Put off my gardening plans for Saturday.
Did it?
But it meant that I could watch this game.
Knocked over a fence panel at my place, yeah.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah, I know, it was very difficult. So.
Anyway, Spurs going to Leeds during a storm. It doesn't sound good, it doesn't sound promising, but they got through it.
At the top of the Championship, Coventry beating Sheffield Wednesday 5-0, and honestly, this could have been more. One of the goals should have been chalked off for a definite offside, but Coventry missed a few really great chances. It could have easily been 6 or 7-0, this one.
They're looking relentless, aren't they? The last couple of games.
Free scoring. They won 4-0 away at Millwall in the week. A lot of teams, Championship level, you're always looking for a striker, aren't you? How many teams go, we just need a 20-goal a season striker or whatever it is? Turns out that actually, like, Coventry have got them all.
They've got them all. They've kind of got that kind of pocket of strikers not quite good enough for the Premier League.
Yeah.
But very good in the Championship. The Cameron Jerome.
Brandon Thomas-Asante scoring twice in this one. Haji Wright. They brought Ellis Sims off the bench, who scored. I think currently 3 out of the top 5 scorers in the Championship play for Coventry. This game was briefly delayed in the 10th minute after fans ran on the pitch. This is part of the ongoing protests against Sheffield Wednesday's ownership. Thankfully, that was all fairly peaceful and the game was allowed to continue. But it's not looking good at Hillsborough, is it?
It's not, and this was a really interesting one, actually. I saw a lot of backlash that more fans didn't get on the pitch and, like, commit to the protest. It
was a bit of a sad effort.
It was, and now these fans are going to get probably bans from the stadium and from future games.
Ipswich beating Norwich 3-1 in their first East Anglian derby win for 16 years.
That's
Joe.
mad, isn't it?
Isn't it mad? Yeah, absolutely.
The old farm derby.
Is that what they call it?
Yes.
That's a good name. A stunning strike from former Stoke loanee Jayden Philogene. Of course, Puskas Award nominee, friend of the pod Simon Thomas. Of course, I'm calling him friend of the pod.
No, I think we can. He's been on twice.
He's been on twice. Yeah. Posting on Instagram that his beloved Canaries are in a relegation battle, and certainly the Norwich fans, that's what they think. They're struggling down at the bottom of the league.
I have a friend who's a big Ipswich fan. He couldn't go to this game, so he gave his ticket to his dad, and his dad refused to go because he was like, I don't know if I can put myself through that. He was like, this is such a big game that they're actually expected to win for probably the first time in a long time. And he just couldn't. He didn't go. He couldn't put himself through it.
Oh, goodness!
Imagine
missing that. Elsewhere, Bristol City throwing away a 1-goal lead at home to QPR. But Bible baller Richard Kone. When I say Bible baller,
Richard.
Yeah. Hang on a minute. Hang on. He's a Bible.
The Book of Richard.
No. He's a Bible baller in the sense that he's a lover of Jesus. He's a follower of Jesus.
That's not a Bible baller.
No, it's not. No. We'll have to come up with a better term for him. But yes, scoring his 4th goal of the season. He's QPR's top scorer, and he's got an amazing story, which we're going to hopefully try and delve into in a future podcast. But yes, QPR winning, a great win for them away at Bristol City. High Flyers Stoke.
Oh, here we go.
Not my words, Joe, the words of the BBC.
Well, it must be true.
Dropping points at Ewood Park, 1-1 draw away at Blackburn. Very much 2 points dropped. Stoke missing lots of chances. And it was one of those, we should have been 3-0 up, and then by the end we were kind of lucky to hold on to 1-1 there.
Well, it's strange. I thought Blackburn games finish on the 80th minute, so you should have come away with a win here.
Of course, yeah, you'd think so. Of course,
Storm Amy could do you a favour here.
Yeah, that would have been nice. But apparently the pitch was not that waterlogged. So yes, sadly, Blackburn getting it. Well, sadly for Stoke fans, I mean Blackburn getting a point there. Middlesbrough have officially lost a game. Pompey, the side to end their unbeaten start with a 1-0 home win. So this was an interesting one, Joe. This stat about Borough only scoring 12 goals in 9 games, and about how they're clearly not free scoring. But actually, truth be told, is if you look at the top of the Championship, now I do have to say, apart from Coventry City are very much outliers. In their 9 games, they've scored 27 and conceded 7. So they have a goal difference of 20 after 9 games, which is astonishing. But Middlesbrough have scored 12, Leicester have scored 13, Preston have scored 11, Stoke have scored 11, QPR have scored 13, and very much they're all about the same in terms of goal difference. So the playoffs are littered with teams who are essentially just playing solid football, hard to beat. And I think that is a bit different from previous years, isn't it? You know, you remember the sort of really high scoring teams that have gone up in the last few years, gone up into the Premier League and then really struggled. It seems like Championship managers are going for a different approach this time around, aren't they?
I think so, yeah. I think you're seeing this across the whole of the Football League. It's much more competitive, and actually the quality of manager you're getting now in the Championship is also higher than ever.
Sadly, more woes for Chris Wilder's Sheffield United, losing away at Hull 1-0. They still only have 3 points in 9 games. It's not looking good for them. A miracle is needed there, isn't it, at Bramall Lane?
Well, this is hard, isn't it? Because normally they break glass for emergency Chris Wilder
when
they're in trouble.
And they've done that.
What's next?
Yeah, exactly. So it's only going to be a couple of weeks before we get the complaints about sandwiches coming out, and it all feels like it might go very wrong there.
Don't be eating sandwiches around Chris Wilder.
Let's have a look at the Scottish Premiership, Joe. This is not usually the kind of thing we would do, is it, really?
It's not, but I think actually the Scottish Premiership is fascinating this year.
Tell us about that, Joe.
Well, we've spoken a lot about Rangers. We've just heard that the sacking of Russell Martin has happened, which we've all kind of seen coming, right?
Yeah.
He reportedly got given 5 games to save his job. He lost the first 2, including one in the Europa League. And this away game with Falkirk was kind of penned as an easy 3 points.
Yeah.
Rangers should be going to Falkirk and winning, but it didn't happen. They got a 1-1 draw and 25 successive away matches without a clean sheet.
This is amazing. Actually, on Thursday in the Europa League, which was the 24th consecutive away match without a clean sheet, they broke a record which has stood since January 1897.
Wow.
I quite enjoy the specificness of January in that.
We must put the month. That's brilliant.
But clearly, like that is a real big issue, isn't it? The stats just do not lie. In this case, a 29.4% win percentage for Russell Martin, the lowest of any Rangers manager that has ever been in charge for more than 10 games.
I saw something that referred to this job as a bit of a poison chalice, which I don't necessarily agree with.
No, it actually feels like the opposite.
It's the opposite. It's kind of where you go to revive a career.
Yeah, you can go and be quite average, and Rangers should surely win.
Look at what happened with Steven Gerrard. He went there, he won the league, and he was touted as a hero, which obviously that is huge after what Rangers have been through the last couple of decades, that he did a fantastic job there. And now look where his managerial career's gone. So I'd say it's anything but a poison chalice. And I don't know where Russell Martin goes from here. Maybe he does what Steve Cooper's done. He's gone abroad. He's gone to manage in Norway. Kind of take a bit of time away from the limelight. Yeah. Because Scotland still very much is in the limelight, as we've seen.
And it's definitely worth talking about the scenes after the game. Russell Martin, this was before he was given the news of his sacking, needed a police escort to get away from the ground. There's video footage of them having to basically sort of get him out of the back entrance because of fans waiting for him with sort of scarves over their faces, which was very, very menacing. Now, obviously, Russell Martin has done a terrible job here at Rangers, and we cannot ignore that. But we also cannot ignore just the awful scenes, the toxic, aggressive scenes that were seen at the end of this game as well. And there's a line somewhere, and clearly it was crossed.
We're going to chat with Marcus about that, about how we how we kind of stand out against this, about this toxic culture of piling in on managers. Well, Ed, I'm very excited to bring this interview.
I've never seen you more excited.
No, I'm a big fan of this guy, Marcus Speller. He's the host of the Football Ramble podcast. As we said before, Football Ramble is a podcast that is quite big in the UK. It actually won an award last year for being the best football podcast in the UK. Marcus Speller is the host of this podcast, and he is a Christian. So I was really excited to talk to him about what it's like to have a faith and run one of the biggest podcasts in the country. Well, I'm delighted to be joined by the host of the Football Ramble, Marcus Speller. What a joy it is to be joined by you.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to be here, Joe.
You're a man of faith, but the show that you host is a secular show, catering to a secular audience. It's very easy to keep those things separate, yet faith is becoming more prevalent in football. Would you agree with that statement?
I would. I think that's down to, there's maybe a couple of reasons. I think it's a new generation in this country and abroad, because you have a lot of foreign players playing in the Premier League as well. If I was to stick with just, say, players from this country, I think, I guess people now growing up, back in the day, even when I was growing up, you don't mention religion or politics. There was still that kind of feeling. Less so than it would have been before my time, but growing up, that was definitely a thing. I don't think young people necessarily have that so much anymore, for whatever reason. I'll leave that to somebody else to go into. So I think there's probably a bit of that. And I think also with players coming from other cultures where maybe they are comfortable in talking about certain things or displaying or showing their faith in whatever way, whether it's a goal celebration or, I don't know, something they're wearing or whatever. Perhaps they're more comfortable. And so I think those would probably be a couple of reasons for that, perhaps.
I guess when you started the Ramble, social media was less of a thing, right?
Yes.
I'm thinking of someone like Kaká would score a goal, reveal the top that says, "I belong to Jesus." Whereas now, we're getting so much more content. And I'm thinking particularly around last season, around Crystal Palace, is
yes, yeah,
like a really nice thing to see from a Christian perspective. How did you feel covering that story as a Christian on a secular football podcast? Was that something that excited you?
It was, yeah. I mean, it was great to see. You're right to say that social media was less of a thing when we started, and also Richard Dawkins and his mob were more of a thing as well. So that perhaps informed the conversation. I genuinely think it did. I think in the early, mid, and maybe late 2000s, if you mentioned faith, people would look down their nose and think that it was a question of intelligence, that you were stupid. Oh, you believe in that fairy tale, do you? And of course, that is an extremely ignorant point of view. I mean, if it's good enough for Sir Isaac Newton back in the day, I don't think you can question it as a matter of intelligence, or, you can cherry pick whoever you want. So, yeah, to fast forward and to go back to what you were saying, yeah, you then see players quite clearly displaying their faith, whether it's, as I say, through a goal celebration, whether it's very overtly praying on the field of play before or after a game normally. I mean, I'm a Fulham fan. One of the things that I love seeing is, as soon as the full-time whistle goes at Fulham, the Nigerian international Calvin Bassey drops to his knees and puts his hands in the sky. It's very overt. I mean, we used to catch glimpses of it. I remember when Chelsea were playing once, back in the day when David Luiz and Fernando Torres were playing, and David Luiz goes up to Fernando Torres, and Torres assumes the prayer position with his palms out and eyes closed, and David Luiz puts his hand on Torres's head, and he quite clearly says a quick prayer, and that was just caught quickly by a camera. And I was, oh my goodness, that's incredible. So when the players are doing that, those who are covering games, journalists or pundits or podcasters, you have to go, well, okay, if indeed you were indoctrinated by the likes of Richard Dawkins, well, are those guys stupid as well, or are they unintelligent? Or, because you seem to have a level of respect for professional footballers. So I do find it interesting that it's kind of come crashing into the game, and it's almost men who men who garner respect for whatever reason are displaying this. Then people think, well, actually, hang on a minute here, there's something going on. So with Crystal Palace, yeah, I mean, it was very, very obvious that, again, some of their celebrations, but even what they would say in interviews and in press conferences and so on and so forth. Mark Gay said it when he was away with England during Euro 2024, said his dad was is a pastor. So I do find it quite incredible. And then you see a video of Joel Ward, the Palace the player who left after that FA Cup when I think his contract was up, or he left the club, talking about his faith to the rest of his team in the changing room. You think, growing up, there's no way a player would have done that back in the day. The rest of the squad of boom were like, oh, blimey, what's this? Who let him do this? So yeah, I think nowadays, for better and sometimes for worse, individuals are allowed to express themselves a lot more in this hyper individualistic culture and society that we now have. But you can make faith gains with that. So like I say, sometimes it's for worse, sometimes it's for better. But it's been really quite heartwarming and intriguing as a Christian to see footballers more comfortable with this, in particular English footballers as well. Because as I say, I remember The Guardian did a piece a little while ago and actually pinpointed it and said, more specifically than English, white English players. I think if you have a Caribbean or an African heritage somewhere, it's kind of just assumed that, oh, well, maybe you're Christian or whatever. But I think I could remember, because when Wayne Rooney once tweeted something about watching God TV, he was immediately criticised. Oh, what are you? Are you all right, Wayne? Are you sure you had a bash to the head or something? It was, again, it's not a question of intelligence. So yeah, really, really lovely to see what's been going on at Crystal Palace. And Joel Ward was such a key figure, among others like, Lacroix and Gay and Munoz and so on. So it's an intriguing time.
Yeah, particularly with that Crystal Palace as well. You're seeing pictures of them all praying after they've won the FA Cup.
Yeah.
And you're seeing Ben Chilwell in the back kind of praying. And you're like, what impact is this having on, like you say, our English players? I think it's really encouraging to see. I'd like to move on to how your faith helps with what you do as a journalist. As Christians, we're taught to show compassion, to see people through God's eyes. But as a journalist, you're told to tell the truth, right? And sometimes that means criticizing a player and their performance, maybe their attitude. How do you hold that balance?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, I would call myself more a broadcaster than a journalist, because I'm not one for writing articles. But you're right, I am to critique or comment on what's going on. And I mean, it is tricky. On the Football Ramble podcast, obviously, I can be more nuanced and so on. But when I contribute, say, to Talk Sport, for example, people tend not to hold back on that radio. So, but I think, if you're going to say something, you've got to say it, right? And it's tricky. How do you, well, you say, I mean, about you're finding the truth or your opinion. You can't lie. I mean, if somebody is playing very, very poorly, you can't then say, oh, well, I thought we actually had a good game, when clearly not. You're going to lose respectability. And again, lying or trying to bend the truth doesn't really serve anybody well. But you can honour someone in your words. You don't have to be scathing per se. I mean, look, I'll hold my hands up on the ramble. Yes, for comical effect, you might come out with the odd thing here and there. But generally speaking, particularly if you're talking about managers, I think football managers are the ones that are the real lightning rods for all sorts of heavy criticism. I think if you're a player, there's always that level of respect of you're a player. Hundreds of millions of us try and become footballers and get absolutely nowhere near a semi-pro pitch, let alone even a professional pitch. So there'll always be even just a veneer of respect, I think, for some players. But the managers, even though the same should and could apply, I think they're the ones who really get it badly. So how does one approach, say, Ruben Amorim at Manchester United at the moment, where they're doing terribly? I mean, what did he say recently? The Pope couldn't even change his mind when it comes to his football tactics and so on, which are clearly not working and haven't been for a long time. And he's finding it hard. And some of the quotes he's coming out with are, quite mad, really. Well, what do you do? I mean, yeah, you can have a laugh, I think, at some things about what he said, and you can extrapolate on that. But because if someone says something silly, again, poking fun, yeah, okay, there is a little bit of that. I mean, I am the only Christian on the podcast. All the other guys would be atheist or agnostic at best, but certainly atheist would be a more appropriate term, certainly for most of them. I think if people are piling in on someone, one maybe holds back a little bit. One tries to be a little bit more honouring, as I say, and to not get too personal, because just because the guy's maybe not doing a great job at Manchester United, which is becoming the unmanageable club, you can say it's becoming an unmanageable club. You can say, well, it's not because this guy's a complete loser, because that's pretty harsh talk. And I don't agree with that point, because clearly he's a Manchester United manager on merit, for example, as we're using Amorim as the example. So I think trying to not be particularly personal, and the old adage of, if he heard what we said about him, would I feel shame? Would I be embarrassed by that? If you are enjoying and playfully talking about some of the funny quotes he said, well, I mean, he's a football manager. He's in the spotlight. That's not going to be a surprise to him. When he says, sometimes I like my players, sometimes I hate them. I mean, he didn't even mention his kids, exactly. So, you then don't start scrutinising, well, what type of relationship does he have with his kids? That is completely unnecessary. That's not very nice. Whereas if you just start having a bit of fun with it, and again, if he heard one of our podcasts, I'd be quite confident that, yes, okay, it would maybe make for a slightly awkward conversation if he confronted me with it. But I think you've always got to be confident that if someone was to confront you, in the highly unlikely event that they did hear what you were saying, you would say, well, yeah, like, look, clearly there was bit of comedy license for some of the stuff that you say, but also as well, that's what I think, mate. The results speak for themselves. The performances speak for themselves. I think that perhaps tactically you might need to switch it up, or it's a shame that you didn't get a tune out of Marcus Rashford and now he's playing pretty well for Barcelona. So again, what would, say stuff which you would feel somewhat comfortable with them hearing. And I think that's probably a decent rule to go by.
Good stuff. Really good advice. And I like what you're saying about how, maybe sometimes it's about taking a step back. It's about not joining in with the crowd mentality initially, and then maybe choosing your moment. Marcus, thank you so much for joining us on the Big Man Up Top. You've provided such wisdom and insight, and it's been
bless you, sir,
a joy to have you. I have one more question for you, which
go on.
We ask all of our guests. We are the Big Man Up Top. Fulham have a corner in the last minute. Maybe it's only 1-1 against Brentford. Harry Wilson hasn't put it in the Brentford net. And you need to bring on a number 9 for that corner. Who are you choosing?
What, at any point in history?
Any point.
Can I? Oh, blimey. Now you're talking. I mean, my mind immediately went to Alexander Mitrovic, which maybe is a small time answer. But I mean, I saw him head a winner against Brentford. The scenario you've just described, and a great header of the ball. So he would be one. I mean, I'm thinking sort of Alan Shearer, or even Virgil van Dijk would be quite handy, and so on and so forth. Peter Crouch. Let's say, absolute battering ram of a human being, a monster of a man, love to get his head on the ball. Let's go for big Duncan Ferguson.
Massive.
I've no doubt you've probably had that answer before, if indeed you've asked people that same question.
We have. He's a popular choice. But
yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah,
he does the job.
Yeah.
Well, Marcus, it's been a joy. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. Pleasure being on here.
So there we have it, chat with Marcus Speller, and we actually chatted for a lot longer than that. But I think the main takeaway and the main relevant points we heard there was about managers, right? We're in a season now where it's an international break, and traditionally in an international break, managers get sacked because it's a time you can turn it around. And there's a lot of manager pile-on going on. I think, like we mentioned before, Ange Postecoglou is already getting a lot of stick about the way he is managing Nottingham Forest, and there's a danger that can get personal.
Well, it's already talking about it. There's conversations about him having to fight for his job, and you just think like, gosh, I mean, can you imagine if you started a new job, and within 6 weeks there's conversations of you not performing well enough? That would be an absolute nightmare. And it wouldn't get the best out of you either, would it?
It wouldn't at all. And I think Marcus made some really good points that actually it's okay to comment on his performance as a manager and the way he is getting these players to play. As soon as it turns personal, that's not okay.
Football managers are just like players, just like anybody in the public eye. They need to understand that them doing their job is inviting criticism. It's just one of the unfortunate sort of parts of the job, isn't it? Really, is that they are in charge of a football team, and there are people who are stakeholders in this who are going to want to to get their thoughts across. I'm a Stoke fan. I want to feel like if I'm unhappy with a manager that's in charge, that I can say within reason what I want about the way this club is being run. Now, the difference is that there is and we also have to be very clear, like fans, they've not just earned that right by being supporters, but like we as humans, we live in a society where we have free speech, right? So we should be able to offer criticism. But there is a line somewhere where, as Marcus said, it goes from being criticism about somebody's job, objective, I think you're getting this wrong with this tactic, or I think you're getting that wrong with this player choice, to it becoming a personality thing, to it talking about this person's character or whatever that might be, or their personal and private life is when it gets really, really bad. And so I think that that there is a line somewhere. The trouble is that we live in a society now that, I think social media has a lot to say for this, is that it doesn't really matter what we say because apparently we're just saying it into a void. And actually that's not true. These are real words that are going out, being published on social media platforms. And we do have a responsibility, just as people, humans in society, to be careful about what we say. And then in addition to that, as Christians, there's a whole other level as well.
Yeah, and I think this is what I was trying to think. How can we kind of apply this to our lives? Because we don't have access to these managers. Marcus spoke about if I bumped into a manager and he heard what I said, would I be okay? Was it honouring of that person? And obviously we don't have that access, and I assume Ruben Amorim and Ange Postecoglou doesn't listen to the big man up top.
Can you imagine?
You never know.
That would be great.
But I think
please email us, guys, podcast@ucb.co.uk if you are.
Get involved, absolutely. But
join in with the comments on YouTube.
Yeah, go down there. But we are, and we've spoken on it, we're both in group chats that talk about football a lot. And the thing with group chats is they can escalate quite quickly, right? Particularly if your club isn't doing well or your manager isn't doing well. Things get thrown into group chats, conversations can happen that maybe get more personal than they should do. What can we do in those spaces as Christians that kind of reels that back, kind of, makes this less of a personal thing?
Well, I think ultimately there's an extent where we're not responsible for others' actions. That is something we have to say. We are only responsible for our own actions. So I think, as Marcus said, is that what he can do is make sure that he has a line and a conviction that he will not cross. And I think that's step one. We need to make sure we're keeping things objective. Also as well, like trying to look for the positive in a situation. So I go back to when Stoke City had Nathan Jones in, and it was one of the worst performing managers that we had in quite a few years. But what you could tell was that this was a guy who really cared. And so when people would start saying things about Nathan Jones and about how he's out of his depth and all of this sort of stuff, arguably true in that case, I would try and say, try and sort of talk about how he's clearly somebody who cares. It's just not quite working, is it? Do you know what I mean? I think you can bring a new slant on it that, is still factually correct, but maybe is focusing on a different angle. I think ultimately what we have to be doing, and it was this word that Marcus brought out, was honouring. What we're saying has to be honouring.
I think so. I think it's really interesting and really good what you're saying about finding your line and kind of sticking to that. I know where the line is for me. I know that this is where I should stop. But then someone else has a different line, and that's down to personality. But also, is it okay to keep others accountable if they don't share your faith?
I think so. I think what I would say is, maybe this is a cop-out of an answer, I think it depends on the situation. At a certain point, if somebody is just being vitriolic and hateful, I think there is a moment to call that out, particularly if it is something to do with race or anything like that. Something that has nothing to do with...
That is objectively wrong.
That is, yeah, absolutely. But I think equally, like I said, I don't think we should be putting a huge amount of pressure on ourselves to control the actions of other people. Here's a few key Bible verses, Joe, that I think we can draw inspiration from. Romans 12. In Romans 12, it says, "Be devoted to one another in brotherly love, love each other with genuine affection." And here's the crucial bit: take delight in honouring each other. I think that's a really important verse. Ephesians 4 says, "Do not let any unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs." And again, crucially at the end, it says, "that it may benefit those who listen." That's not just the person you're saying it to, but it's also the person who is in the periphery that may be listening as well. And so I think that's another crucial thing. In the stands, on the WhatsApp groups, what are we saying? Because actually it has an impact on the other people around us that listen as well.
Well, Ed, you've had long enough.
Oh, I completely forgot we were even doing this.
Yeah, well, it only happens every episode.
It only happens every episode. Yeah. What's the question again, Joe? I've forgotten it.
The question again, current Baller League manager John Terry, and that is a crucial part of the question, Baller League manager.
Right.
He made 492 appearances for Chelsea, winning the Premier League 5 times, famously. But which Premier League club did he spend a year on loan at in 2000?
So I don't know why you're saying Baller League like that. What has that got to do with it?
Because he's a manager in the Baller League currently.
Yeah, and? It's
good for John Terry to stay relevant. I once actually had to tell John Terry to move.
Did you?
In a Cafe Nero.
Oh, wow. And how did he take that?
He was fine, actually.
Okay,
I did also take someone with me because I was scared. But I used to work in the Cafe Nero at Birmingham Airport.
This is great.
And the policy was... Because you're in an airport, the policy is if you don't buy a drink, you can't sit at the tables.
Oh, this is fantastic! And so you kicked him out.
I did.
You bounced John Terry.
I bounced him. Aston Villa were on a pre-season tour in the summer. They were obviously flying somewhere. John Terry just thought, he can take a table in the Cafe Nero.
He sits where he wants. He sits where he wants.
Sits where he wants unless he's told not to.
Yeah, good.
Which is what I did with the help of my boss. He wasn't happy about it, but he didn't kick up a fuss.
Oh, well, listen, fair play.
Yeah.
That's great. Fair play to you and fair play to him as well.
I'd say so. Fair play, John Terry. Anyway,
ask me the question again, Joe.
Well... Which Premier League club did John Terry spend a year on loan at in 2000?
Okay, so I have absolutely no idea. I'm basically going for the whole, the road I've gone down before.
Okay.
Of London-based player going on loan at a London-based club.
Okay.
My first thought was Crystal Palace. I'm actually going with West Ham.
Oh, okay. West Ham. Now, he did actually come through the West Ham Youth Academy.
I think that's what I'm thinking of.
So that's going in your favour. However, the correct answer is Nottingham Forest.
Oh, yeah. No, I
spent a year at Nottingham Forest in the year 2000, making 6 appearances before returning to Chelsea and becoming a mainstay in a title-winning defence.
Well, that's all we've got time for today, Joe.
Oh, it's been lovely.
It's been lovely. You've got to chat to Marcus Speller.
Indeed.
It's a career highlight for you.
Potentially, yes.
Potentially. Thank you so much for listening to The Big Man Up Top. If you want to get in touch with the show, please ping us an email to podcast@ucb.co.uk. Make sure you follow, subscribe, and give us all the good reviews. This will help us to get the word out. And also, if you've enjoyed this, tell your friends. There will be a new episode next Tuesday, Joe, won't there?
There will indeed. We're going to be talking about England.
It's a really special one next week.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this, actually. We're not talking about England that much.
No, maybe a little bit.
Maybe a little bit.
See you next week, Joe.
Bye.